Today I'm going to show you how to do the vertigo effect or the dolly effect, also known as how to put your camera on drugs. Here's an example. Bear in mind the camera is not moving at all, and yet it looks like it's moving. So that's one example. I created a second example here. Let me just press play. You can look at this face over here, and you can kind of see what's happening. The camera is not moving at all. Well, not really moving from its frame, more or less. And yet the whole world looks like it's pulling into itself. It's almost like the movie Train Spotters with those heroin addicts. They have a similar scene. Right, so let me show you how it's done. Let me first delete all these keyframes and redo them, because why not? That's a very easy and quick thing to do. Let me just pause. Right, just to show you my setup, I have one window that shows the camera view, another window showing the just normal 3D viewport, and below here I've got my last view, which is the graph editor. All right, so let's get to this. Right, so the first thing you want to do is, let's say you only want to do 100 frames in your scene. You can adjust your frames in your output section, which is, I believe, over here. And you can just make it end at 100. And that's what I did over here. So I'm moving this to 100. It's a tutorial, so 97 is fine, frame 97. And the first thing I want to do is I want to click on the camera. I want to make sure I'm in object mode. Click on the object data properties of the camera. And the first thing I want to do is have a very low focal length. So let's make it 6, right? Or let's make it 2, right? And then I've already adjusted my, if I go over here with the mouse, hover on this with the mouse, press numpad 7, I've already put my camera on the y-axis. You can move it wherever you like. It's a lot easier if you keep it in line with a certain axis. You'll see why now, especially for this type of scene. The only other thing I would recommend you get, which is just something I like to use when dealing with cameras, is I go to add-ons and I make sure I enable the 3D viewport measureit. You can search for it here. You deselect this if it's not enabled or you don't have it. You'll see it and you just tick it and it will be enabled. It's very useful for measuring the distance between your camera and your object, which you can play around with your f-stop, so that everything around it is blurry. Well, that's the focus scene. I have another tutorial talking about that, but that's just something I recommend. Anyways, let's get to it. So the first thing we want to do is go to the frame 100. 97 is fine. And then I'm going to go on the y-axis here. And you can see I'm moving the camera forward to about there. And it looks like I have to adjust the z-axis if I'm going to get the shot right. And you kind of just have to play around with this until you get your shot right. It's a little bit of a touch and go shot. Right, so we'll leave it at that. And let's say we're happy with that. Now we can hover over these locations over here, and we just press I. And it creates a keyframe. Then we hover over our focal length, which is extreme. Maybe you want it less than this. You press I. And all you have to do now is move your keyframe back to, let's say, 0. And now instead of having a low focal length, we can have it a high one. So let's make it 250 is fine, but let's make it 300. Once that's 300, the next thing you want to do is you want to adjust the y-axis and you want to bring it back. And then you want to adjust the z-axis to get the same position you were in, more or less. And there you have it. You hover over this, you press I, and you hover over this, you press I. And now when you go down here and you press spacebar, or you press play, in this case I'm just going to press spacebar, you get to view how it looks over here. And this is in material view. You obviously have to render it out to get the full effect. but you can kind of see the whole world in the background. It's all moving in as if it were from the movie Train Spotters. So, and there, now the blocks in the background are there. Your whole body's been pulled apart almost. And if we rendered this out or played around with the settings, we could make sure that the carrot nose isn't cut off or whatever the case may be. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of this camera effect. Please like and subscribe. Cheers.